Tonight, the new King of the Commonwealth addresses the world for the first time. Also, as families of the victims make funeral plans at James Smith Cree Nation, we learn more about the background of accused killer Miles Sanderson. Plus, how a Saskatoon man's life changed after being diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, September 9th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. The Commonwealth had its first glimpse today of the new royal era. King Charles III was in London to begin his duties as tributes for the Queen continue to pour in. Thomas Dagler reports.
Arriving at their new home, Buckingham Palace, the King and Queen Consort were greeted like royalty. A crowd in mourning after Queen Elizabeth's passing, now embracing her son, who's been preparing for this moment his whole life.
We owe her the most heartfelt debt.
In his first speech as king, Charles paid tribute to his mother and announced that Prince William and Kate would inherit the titles Prince and Princess of Wales. As for his own future, the king hinted he won't be able to meddle in political matters as he has before.
My life will, of course, change as I take up my new responsibilities. It will no longer be possible for me to give so much of my time and energies to the charities and issues for which I care so deeply.
For the Queen, there were gun salutes, one round fired for each of the 96 years of her life. And at Westminster, parliamentarians set aside 10 hours for tributes to Her late Majesty.
She showed the world how to give, how to love, and how to serve.
Your Majesty.
Britain's new Prime Minister met the new King in their first in-person audience just days after Liz Truss spoke with the late Queen among Elizabeth's final duties. Outside the palace, well-wishers laid flowers and left messages in her memory.
I think you just felt safe. I think that's because she always knew what to do and she always knew how to conduct herself.
Oh, I just wrote goodbye, Mum.
It's been like this all day with big crowds pushing up against the gate, trying to get a picture, trying to get a glimpse, trying to feel like they were part of this moment.
She deserves so much respect and so many people loved her, and that's why we're here today.
After 70 years of service, the tributes are only beginning. Thomas Dagler, CBC News, London.
As much of the country mourns the death of the Queen, some people in our province are signing books of condolence in Regina and Saskatoon. One of the books can be found in the Cumberland Gallery of the Legislative Building. The gallery is filled with portraits of the late Queen. Today, a steady stream of people visited to pay their respects, many saying the Queen had always been a part of their lives and that they would miss her.
I'm feeling very sad because, the Commonwealth, the country, has lost a wonderful woman. She's been a brilliant statesperson. She's been an ambassador, and a sense of duty to the job she had to do. Just wonderful. And I think it's a big loss, a big loss.
Well, my mom was a real royal watcher, and we just grew up looking at Life magazines, pictures of the Queen, and watching the royal weddings. And then when we heard that the Queen was ill and passed, it just meant a lot for us to come and honor her passing. She was a wonderful regent.
Those residents also say they believe King Charles will do a good job. Those condolence books will remain in the province and they will go into the provincial archives once the period of mourning has ended. Many people continue to share their memories from the Queen's visits to Saskatchewan. Dale Sheehan is a retired assistant commissioner for the RCMP and he works security for the Queen. He says the Queen's visit to Depot in Regina in 2005 made a lasting impression.
Another thing that really struck me as that demonstrates Queen Elizabeth's passion and Her Majesty's commitment is her visit in 2005 to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Training Academy Depot in Saskatchewan. And that was shortly following the Mayerthorpe tragedy in which 4 members of the RCMP were killed in the line of duty. And Her Majesty actually personally requested, and was granted private time with the families of the Mayerthorpe police officers in the RCMP chapel. And the change on the agenda was all of Her Majesty's idea. And it shows how personal and committed Her Majesty is to the Canadians and people around the world.
RCMP say they have found the black Nissan Rogue that Miles Sanderson was believed to be traveling in. Sanderson was on the run for days after Sunday's stabbing rampage at James Smith Cree Nation and in nearby Weldon. Police say they received a tip that led them to an abandoned vehicle in a rural area about 65 kilometers southwest of the reserve. The First Nations community is finally able to begin traditional ceremonies and funerals for the victims. They've been delayed because of the police investigation and autopsies. 10 people were killed. That does not include one of the suspects, Damian Sanderson. A community leader says there will be a funeral for Bobby Sanderson tomorrow. Then, on Monday, funerals for Lana Head and Christian Head. The husband of Bonnie Burns and father of Gregory Burns says he's planning their funerals for Tuesday. That's also when Gloria Burns is expected to be laid to rest. Other wakes and funerals are also taking place. While they mourn, Indigenous leaders are calling for more First Nations-run police operations in Saskatchewan. That message was repeated several times during a press conference hosted in the community yesterday. Brian Enius takes a deeper look.
On Sunday morning, the first call to RCMP came in at 5:43 a.m. Officers deployed within 3 minutes, but due to the driving time, it took them about 35 minutes to arrive at the first crime scene at James Smith Cree Nation. 9 people were killed and another 18 were injured on the reserve. Daryl Burns' sister was stabbed to death, and he believes a local police force on reserve could have saved her life.
These murders that happened here in our community, they were spread out over a large period of time. So if the cops responded at the first call, would some of these people still be alive? So if we had a police force in our community, the response time would be a lot quicker.
With this tragedy and ongoing drug problems, the chief of James Smith Cree Nation has renewed his push for a First Nations-run police service in the community.
And we have to make it loud and clear that, we mean business. We got to protect our people.
The Prince Albert Grand Council has put forward a proposal for a feasibility study to look at setting up a self-administered police service for the 12 First Nations communities it serves, including the James Smith Cree Nation. The federal government is considering that proposal. It is also committed to developing legislation that would recognize First Nations police services as an essential service.
We have been at the table and we will continue to be at the table when it comes to advancing public safety initiatives that are co-led by Indigenous communities, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And this awful tragedy is a reminder of what terrible consequences can lie in wait when we don't advance this work together.
But there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done, including consultation work, and every community's unique needs would need to be considered before legislation can make the formation of a new First Nations police service a reality. Brian Enius, CBC News, Regina.
We continue to learn more about the past of accused killer Miles Sanderson and his connection to some of the victims. Senior reporter Katie Nicholson has been looking through court documents to help us understand his history. She joins me now from Toronto. Katie, what do we know these documents reveal about Sanderson's past?
Well, Sam, we have 2 sets of documents, right? So we have these ones. These are the Saskatchewan Law Court's documents. They have convictions going back to 2008. And we also have the Parole Board of Canada decision documents from February. So just to go through some of them, they really give us insights into Sanderson's long and troubled history, a history of violence, of intimate partner violence, of failure to comply, struggles with addictions. In total, there are some 59 9 convictions here. And to be fair, most of them have to do with failure to comply with an order or a breach. So the parole board documents are written in a way that really tell a story a bit more. So they tell us that he first used cocaine at the age of 14, that in his 20s he started using meth, that there was chronic issues with alcohol abuse. And with regards to intimate partner violence, it really shows us that he was charged with assault and convicted multiple times over 10 years, and that he had a long history of violence against members of the community. They detail assaults with knives, with a cheese knife, with forks, throwing a cinder block through a woman's car, stealing vehicles, robbery, that sort of thing. In one instance that is really detailed in the parole board documents, he smashed a bathroom door. And what's notable about this is an intimate partner situation where his partner had actually removed the children to the bathtub to be safe. So certainly some terrifying incidents that are illustrated here. There are also details here about previous assaults and attacks on members of the community. And the parole records really speak to his early childhood. And we didn't really know a whole lot about that beforehand, but his parents separated when he was 9. He, at that point, started moving back and forth between his father's home and his grandparents who lived on a First Nation. In both homes, the parole documents tell us he was subject to abuse. He witnessed violence. And when he turned 11, he sort of went back and forth between his mother's home and his father's home into his adolescence. And it also talks about the drastic impact drugs had on him. He told the court at one point that when he used marijuana or alcohol or any other substance, it made him lose his mind.
And Katie, we've learned this isn't the first time that Miles attacked his in-laws.
Yeah, there is an assault record from 7 years ago in which he is accused of stabbing Earl Burns and of attacking another family member, essentially his in-laws, while he during an altercation in their home. And so in that instance, he was handed 2 years. But certainly it tells us a story of a pattern of behavior here. And of course, we know, sadly, Earl Burns is one of Sunday's victims.
Thanks so much for this, Katie.
You're welcome.
CBC senior reporter Katie Nicholson in Toronto. Some news when it comes to COVID-19 vaccines today. Health Canada has approved Pfizer's vaccines for kids under 5, and the government of Saskatchewan has rolled out its plans for those eligible for the Moderna bivalent vaccine. This vaccine targets both the original virus and the Omicron variant BA1 that emerged late last year. Residents in long-term care and personal care homes will be first up starting Monday. Then, starting September 19th, anyone 70 and older, as well as Indigenous people 50 and older, can get the new booster. The province is expecting to receive 90,000 doses of the vaccine over the next 2 weeks. Coming off a frustrating loss to the Bombers on Labor Day weekend, the Riders are now in Winnipeg hoping for payback. The annual back-to-back meetings in early September did not go so well for the Riders last year. The Bombers won them both, one of them 33-8. But now the Riders are only worried about improving on their 6-6 record with 6 games left to go. They feel they should have won the Labor Day Classic over the best team in the CFL.
We just got to find a way to refocus, recenter ourselves, and find a way to win. I mean, is it harder on us or is it harder on them to try to win again? I mean, you could ask the question either way, but just know that we're going to go in and they're going to get our best football.
But I think we're catching our stride. Offensively speaking, I thought we had a really good game and a lot of plays that were negated due to penalty. If you take those penalties away, I think the numbers would be eye-popping. So there's a lot to build from and a lot of positivity going against one of the top defenses in the league. So we're going to take that going into this week.
The Riders and Bombers kick off in Winnipeg at 3 tomorrow. The Riders also host the Edmonton Elks next Friday. That's their second last home game of the season. It was a nice, cool, fall-like day today. Perfect to get out for a walk like so many people did in Saskatoon. But the break from the heat is not really a long one. Ethan will explain in his full forecast after the break. Stay with us.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln, making back to busy easy.
Welcome back. Weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now. A cool night overnight, and I'm just waiting for you to drop the F word.
Yeah, I'm going to drop it, Sam, so everyone get ready. Don't worry, you don't need to turn down your TVs for this or bleep me. It's just frost is the F word. And yes, lots of frost advisories across south and central Saskatchewan, also in Alberta and Manitoba. The first advisories of our meteorological fall. Patchy frost, so not everyone's going to get it to the same degree or maybe at all, but the advisory is out there. Now, this happens, frost is all driven by the dew point. Now, the dew point is all driven by its a measure of the relative humidity in the atmosphere, and usually in the summertime when that dew point is close to the actual temperature outside, that's when it gets really muggy, really sticky. And usually the dew point isn't above the surface temperature, but when it gets below it, especially when the surface temperature is near freezing, what starts to happen is that moisture in the air freezes and then it's deposited as those little bits of ice or frost. Now, if you have things in the garden, especially vegetables, you're going to want to make sure that you protect some of them. Carrots, peas, lettuce, you won't have to worry because usually they can withstand the frost, but if you've got tomato or squash, beans, basil, good time maybe to either cover them up or if they're ready for harvest, take those inside because we are likely going to see that frost tonight. Now, temperatures already dropping, a cool fallish September day once again across the province. And temperatures really just sitting just kind of below normal in south and central. 11 degrees is our cold spot at Wynyard right now, 12 in Yorkton and Hudson Bay. Still a little warmer in the southwest, closer to 17 at Maple Creek and Leader. Now, remember this, our big ridge of high pressure? Well, it's coming back, but unlike the last couple of times, not going to bring intense heat. Now, look how quickly it flattens out. That's why that heat's not going to be as quite intense, but it will still get close to 30 degrees in south and central Saskatchewan, especially on Sunday before things return to normal as we head through the beginning to the middle of next week. Now, not really much to speak about on our surface map. We're seeing some showers move out of the north. Maybe some showers and the occasional rumble of thunder in the southeast part of the province tonight, Regina, Weyburn, Estevan, but that quickly moves out. High pressure moves in, and we are seeing really clear, sunny conditions province-wide throughout much of the weekend and into Monday as well. Gusty afternoon, that low pressure system causing some residual northwest wind gusts, but by the time we get to tomorrow, most of us, maybe the central region a little bit gusty, but enjoying a calmer weekend, especially on Sunday. Just a couple of pockets of gusts in the southwest and in the far north. Now in Regina over the next 7 days here, no noticeable moisture until Tuesday, but until then, again, getting very close to 30 degrees on Sunday, lots of sunshine, a little breezy on Monday as we start to make our way down. And then possible rain showers as we head through next week. Saskatoon, a similar forecast tomorrow and Sunday. Quite nice days as we start that warm up. Only 15 degrees on Tuesday, and that rain could come a little bit more to you. And then we're back into the 20s. But Sam, isn't it nice to be able to go to bed at night and actually open up the windows?
Yes, but only in Saskatchewan could you have frost and 30 degrees in the same week.
We just can't find that middle.
Not at all. No Goldilocks over here.
No.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Commonwealth countries around the world are remembering the Queen, and one of Australia's tributes is particularly striking. The Sydney Opera House lit up overnight with an image of Elizabeth. Across Australia, buildings have also turned purple in her honor, and they will stay that way every night until her funeral. We'll be back after the break. Today is International FASD Awareness Day. Fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is a condition that occurs when a mother drinks alcohol while pregnant. It causes a range of cognitive and behavioral impairments. A 24-year-old Saskatoon man shares with us how his diagnosis during the pandemic changed his life.
Hi, my name is Vinny Neistis. I am 24 years old. I live in Saskatoon, and for hobbies, I am a photographer and a filmmaker, a YouTuber. Basically, since when I was a baby, I was living in foster care for 13 years. And then after that, I live in a group home for about maybe 4 years now, living in Saskatoon. FASD, it's one of those, it's a disability that people can't see nowadays. and I have it since 2019. I was diagnosed in 21. I was having assessment doctor do some testing on me, and I finally noticed that I do have FASD. It's one of those disabilities you can't really see the diagnosis of people, how the way they talk or how they communicate with people and all that. The subject of people, it can go on forever, but for me, my mind doesn't work that way because my mind works different ways. I think a lot of people, when the pandemic happened, it like changed a lot, all of us since then, for 2 years ago. And for me, I did a lot of things like my hobbies, like photography, YouTube, and talk to people online and watch movies or watch YouTube. And since then, when the pandemic happened, I don't have to think big world. I have to think about small world, so I'm still stay safe in my own room, and I don't have to think big at all. Last year, I lost a family member. My grandpa died from COVID, and it's one of the hardest the loved ones go, and it's one of those things that it's hard of the pandemic when you lose loved ones and all that. When he passed away, it didn't make me sad. It made me stronger when he passed away, and he had a really good life. FASD, it's important to people to talk about it and just not hide it, because I think it's one of the hardest things that people can't see, and they can see the face or just the way how they talk or the way of the movement. And it's important to remember that you're not alone.
Nastis has written a personal essay for CBC about his experience in collaboration with the CBC Creator Network. You can check it out at cbc.ca/sask. And Mr. Ethan is back with one last look at tonight's frosty weather.
Yes, and after we get through the near freezing temperatures, Sam, and we get to tomorrow morning, it'll be a chilly start at 8 a.m. at 8 degrees. Sunny conditions, of course, as that high pressure moves in. Winds not too gusty either. They'll pick up a little bit out of the west as we get to the noon hour. A quick warm up, 18 degrees as we get to noon. Saskatoon, we are also looking for sunny skies at 7 degrees again. Southwest gusts just below 20 kilometers an hour. And then as we get to the noon hour, 19, those west gusts getting close to 40 kilometers an hour, but still seeing some sunny skies. Now, skies will be clear enough to see the September full moon. It is the corn moon happening tomorrow night, called that because it corresponds generally with the harvesting of corn in some parts of the country and of North America. Sometimes also referred to as the harvest moon, which is what we usually know it more as because of it is closest to harvest time, Sam, and closest to the fall equinox. So get out and enjoy it.
I was expecting a corny joke there.
None to give.
Have a good weekend, Ethan.
You too.
That's it for us this week. You can always find more news on our website or on our YouTube page. Glenn's back at 11. Have a great weekend.